Are you all right, folks? Thank you for joining us today. We're just trying to get everybody in. I can see the room popping in. So we'll get everybody in here quickly and then we will get going. Thanks for taking the time. I know lots of you have been here for lots of different events. I appreciate that. So my name is Nicole Trevino Flores, and I am the Global Ed Coordinator for SEC. So I've had the pleasure of working with everyone this week, and it's just been amazing to see all these awesome speakers. And I know today will be amazing, so I'm really excited about everyone that's here. Folks, as you're coming in, if you wouldn't mind turning off your camera so that the Zoom will focus on just our participants. And we are recording today, just so you know. So I'm going to give a brief bio of everyone, and then we will allow them each to speak, and then we will have a Q&A at the end. Just a quick plug, if you didn't see the email this morning, don't forget to do the survey. I'll throw it in the chat at the end today. And then also don't forget to hit the food truck upstairs. And also, please, we've got a great event tomorrow if you can make it. And then also the scholarship. I can't forget to plug that. Please think about donating to that scholarship. Travel really is an amazing opportunity for students. And I know that many of our students have never traveled at all. So it's really a neat thing for them to get to do. So I hope you will consider that. And with that, I will go ahead and go into our bios of our lovely speakers. I have Mariano Aiela, and he is a Spanish instructor on the Lincoln campus for almost 2 years now. He was born in Mexico, and at the age of 13, he and his family migrated to the U.S. He is the first in his family to attend college, and he attended Johnston County Community College, where he obtained his Associates of Arts, and then transferred to Appalachian State University in North Carolina, where he obtained his undergraduate as well as his master's in foreign languages, specifically Spanish. He's traveled to Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Cuba. I also have Jihan Wheeler. Jihan is a tutoring and transition academic coach and has been here in Lincoln for almost 2 years. She grew up in Egypt, but has also lived and worked in North Carolina, South Dakota, and Texas, as well as Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Tanzania, and the United Arab Emirates, where she and her family lived for 22 years. She has a master's degree in teaching English as a foreign language from the American University in Cairo, Egypt, and has taught English to English language learners for almost 30 years. Her journey teaching English at the Women's College in Abu Dhabi is what she will focus on today. I have Sanela Ganic, and she is a business instructor on the Lincoln campus. She came to the U.S. as a refugee from Bosnia with her husband and her 1-year-old daughter. She earned an MBA as well as a Bachelor of Science degree and an Associate of Applied Science degree. All of the post-high school degrees were earned here in Nebraska. Before moving to the U.S., she lived in Germany for more than 6 years. Before working at SEC, she worked at Lincoln Literacy and Catholic Social Services, and she assisted new immigrants and new refugees as they started their life in the U.S. She and her husband have 2 daughters. One graduated from UNL last year and is a teacher at Lakeview Elementary, and her second daughter is graduating from UNL this May and will start law school next year. We also have Dr. Audanvez who will be joining us shortly, and he is from Kisii, Kenya. He graduated with a doctorate degree in sociology from K-State University in 2011. He also has an MA in political science from the same university, as well as an MA in international relations from the United States International University of Africa. His undergraduate work in international relations was also completed at the United States International University of Africa, where he obtained a Bachelor of Arts degree. He has a keen research interest in immigrants and refugees from Eastern Africa, which stems from his work in the United Nations High Commission for Refugees as a research intern from 1998 to 2000 at the refugee camps in Kenya. He has also worked with the United Nations Scientific and Cultural Organization, and in 1997, he assisted in coordinating the Somalia peer programs for educational and emergencies in the Horn of Africa. He has been associated with teaching in undergraduate courses in sociology and political science at SEC since 2013. In spring of semester of 2022, he will be teaching a virtual class hosted and transmitted from Africa, GLST 2980, and encourages SEC students to enroll in numbers. Mabea has been published in journal articles and is also a reviewer of several peer-reviewed journals. He is currently a board member of the Lincoln Council of International Visitors and was the interim executive director of the Midwestern African Museum of Art, Culture, and Resource Center, MAMA, from 2017 to 2020. Thank you.
Okay, let's Let me see if it's this. Hi, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience migrating to the U.S. from Mexico. And I just wanted to show you a little bit about my hometown, which is called Apango. And it's a very, very, very small town. When I left in 2004, there were about 300 people in this town. And this is just a few pictures of my town. This is the entrance. And this is, I guess, the downtown of my town. So on the left side, in my town, there was only one phone for the whole entire town. So as you can imagine, there were lines of people on the weekends waiting to hear or to wait for the call, and sometimes we couldn't pass an hour to talk with our family. So they were like, tell us you need to stop because there are other people waiting. And this is the main plaza. So basically, my whole journey started from here at Pango all the way to North Carolina, in Smithfield, North Carolina. I came to the U.S. I was an undocumented kid. I came here illegally. We walked the desert for a week, day and night. I was 13 years old. And for me, it was very difficult, moving to the US because everything was new. The culture was new and the language. And my experience was different. I remember crying like for almost 2 months because I didn't understand anything. Like they put me in English, math, science, all of those classes that I really couldn't understand a thing. But and also in middle school, it was very difficult because in my hometown, to wear something new, it had to be a special occasion. And I remember my mom bought me clothes from head to toe from Walmart. And to me, I was the richest kid. I felt like I was the richest kid on earth because I've never, wore something new, like shoes, socks, shirts, and everything. But the kids at school they used to make fun of me, and I didn't understand why. And later, I understood that it was because of the type of clothing that I was wearing. I also suffer a lot of discrimination because of my skin color, and it was not from other kids, but it was basically kids from Latin America, my own people. Yeah, it was very difficult. Most of them were lighter than me, but I I used to remember like going to my mom crying and not wanting to be the color that I am because of the kids always, making fun of me. But learning the language was, for me, it was a challenge because in my town, English was not something that the teachers would teach you. I remember not having a teacher for 2 years. And coming to the US, I only spoke maybe like red and yellow. That was about it. And learning it made it difficult because in my family, not many, I don't think only my little brother is the ones that speak English, but my mom and my dad, none of them speak English. So it was very difficult for me to get used to it. Um, the culture, but for me, the school was everything was new. I felt like I was a rich kid, like I said. And the most exciting thing for me was when the bus would come pick me up. And I know those are little things that for some kids or for some of you may think it's nothing, but to me, the bus coming to my house to pick me up was I don't know, I just felt like a rich kid. And then eating at the cafeteria, it made it very, I don't know, it was a really new experience that it took me a few months to get used to it. I honestly did not want to stay in my hometown, and because there are not many opportunities there. I remember there was only one doctor in my town, and it was my cousin, and but there were no people like with like professionals, and If it wasn't because of my parents moving to the US, I don't think that I would be who I am now. So I tried to go back to my town, to Mexico, every year, so I can go back to my roots. So I can go back to remembering, where I came from. So for people who speak English as a second language, I really think that you guys don't give up, because as you can tell, I still have an accent, but I'm still learning every day, and I think that with people that would make fun of me, learning the language, it pushed me to be better, to learn the language, and to just continue fighting to be someone in life, just like my mom used to tell me. It doesn't matter if you don't speak the language, you're gonna get there sooner or later. But yeah, and I just wanted to tell you that if you ever want to go to Mexico, you guys can always tell me. I can go with you, because Mexico has a lot to offer. And yeah, so that's it for my part. And I think I have one more picture of the police station. It's not as big. It's not even used, honestly. And this is the health clinic. And it's just a very small room where you would only go if you have a fever or something like that. And this is just honoring the flag in Mexico. And these are some of the roads where I'm from. So that's it for me. Let me end this. There you go. Jihan?
That was so interesting, Mariano. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. So as Nicole said, I was born and grew up in Egypt, and I was very fortunate in that I grew up in a multilingual environment. My family spoke Arabic, French, and English, and so I grew up surrounded by these three languages. Although I went to a French school until my sophomore year, it was not that hard to switch to an English one for the last 2 years of high school and onwards through university and graduate school. I chose to specialize in ESL, teaching English as a second language, and so did my husband. And this profession opened quite a few opportunities for us in terms of working and living in different countries. The educational journey I would like to focus on today is not about me as a student, but as a teacher. I would like to share with you the unique experience that I was privileged to be part of in Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, where I taught at a women's college for 22 years, and the unique cultural insights gleaned from this experience. Just a little bit of background about the UAE in case you're not familiar with it. It is a very, very young country, having been founded in 1971 when the 7 Emirates were united into one. Hence the United Arab Emirates. It wasn't until 1976 that they opened their first university, 1988 that they founded the group of colleges that I worked in, and 1998 when the first university for Emirati women was founded. Another bit of background is that the colleges and universities, and actually even schools starting from the 4th grade, are segregated, where you have men and women each having their own college, their own campus in completely different parts of the city. Instructors can be men and women, but the students themselves didn't mix. However, by the time we left in 2019, this was starting to relax a little bit, and more programs were accepting men and women to be on the same campus. So what were our students like? The Abu Dhabi I started working in 1997 is completely different from the Abu Dhabi I left in 2019. The UAE has developed in every single area at an incredible speed. However, when I first started teaching there, I can confidently say that 99% of my students were first-generation students. And of these, I would say that for more than half of them, first generation didn't mean that their parents didn't go to college. It meant that their parents never went to any kind of school and were actually illiterate. Remember, it's a very young country. What we, the Western trained instructors, fail to realize at first is that being first generation These students lack not only some of the basic academic skills that we often take for granted, but even the skills to physically navigate the campus. So students arrived in this brand new university on their first day, were given their schedules with their room numbers, but they had no idea where to go and how to find these rooms. In Abu Dhabi, places even until now don't really have addresses. Everything is by landmarks. When you order delivery, you give the name of the building if it has one, you give the name of the business that is under the building if there is one, what it is next to, etc. So room numbers meant nothing to these students. They didn't know that 101 was next to 102, next to 103. They didn't know that 101 meant first floor and 201 meant second floor. And us, as their Western instructors, failed to realize this for several days, even weeks, and were marking students late and absent when it was just a matter of teaching students what to us seems like a given. In intercultural studies, there's a model that groups cultures into high context and low context cultures. Most of the Middle East and Asia are high context cultures, meaning that family and tribe come first. Honor and the importance of saving face and not bringing shame to yourself or to your family are first and foremost. Most of Europe, Australia, the US are low context cultures in that having clear and explicit rules and following these rules comes first. You don't bend the rules, you don't negotiate them, you clarify them and make them more explicit if needed, and then you follow them. So here you have these first generation students who were thrown into not only an educational and academic experience that they had a very little familiarity with, but in addition, this academic experience is entirely based on a Western model of education, on Western concepts and cultural norms that are completely different from their own cultural norms. They're kind of caught in the middle between their own culture and the Western culture imposed by the college or university they're in. Here are some examples from our early days when there was potential conflict, or maybe not conflict, but kind of friction or misunderstanding on both sides. The Western model presented them with a very explicit and specific attendance model, for example. You are late 3 times, this counts as an absence. As an absence, you're absent 5 times, you fail the course. They couldn't accept that. They expected and demanded a case-by-case examination of their own particular issues and reasons for being late and absent, and expected to be heard, and took it personally when the rules were applied. From the Western admin point of view, it was the rules are clear, must be followed. From a student's point of view, everything is negotiable. I have personal reasons, you must take them in consideration. Another issue was grades. They felt shamed by a bad grade, as if the grade was about them personally and not about this one piece of work that is being assessed. They tried to negotiate every single grade because in their culture, everything is kind of negotiable. Another example of cultural friction happened when they, quote unquote, helped their cousin or their sister on an exam or an assignment and felt no shame about it. Family comes first. That's the honorable thing to do. Another example of trusting family or tribe first, if they have questions about an assignment or about a project, they ask their friends first. Only if they can't find the answer do they come to the instructor. And then they argue, but my friend said that. So these were just some examples of these potential conflicts and misunderstandings that arose on both sides. Students taking certain things personally that were simply the rules, and instructors misunderstanding the reasons why students were acting one way or another and kind of judging them for certain behaviors. So what were the lessons learned? Things that we take for granted and don't give a second thought to may be very different in another culture and may be very different for first generation students. Even the very definition of first generation can be different. These students needed us to be understanding, empathize, have compassion instead of judging and blindly applying rules. It's not that we were going to bend the rules for them or let them help their cousin on an exam, but at least being aware of these differences and being able to talk about them goes a long way in bridging conflict and bringing people closer together. Here in Lincoln, we have an increasingly diverse student body. Our students bring with them a wealth of cultural backgrounds and rules and experiences. I think that the more dialogue we can have and the more aware we can be, the better we're able to support our students and to give them every opportunity to succeed in their academic journey. Thank you. That's it for me. Sanela.
Thank you, Jihan. Hi, everyone. My name is Sanela Ganich, and I still vividly remember the day when I left my home. But I'm from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also the day when we arrived here to United States. I'm a former refugee from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and before war in Bosnia that started in 1992, I led normal life. My parents worked, I went to school, I was just graduating high school, and worries that I had were which university I will attend, actually if I will pass the entrance exam for the university I wanted to attend, and if I will get dress that I wanted for the prom. All of our celebrations were done after high school is completed, and those were my plans. But when war started, we just fled for our lives. My parents did not take anything from our house. They didn't even take up pictures of us. We just fled. I fled to Germany. We have some pictures now, just to say, with social media and everything else, some people send us pictures, and now we have some copies, which is nice, but we did not have anything from our home. I lived in Germany for over 6 years, 6.5. And then we started life there. That's where I met my husband. That's where my daughter was born. We couldn't stay in Germany. And so that's why we moved to United States. As you can hear from our stories and stories of other refugees and immigrants, beginning a new life, it's not easy. And we actually started new life twice. Some things that we take for granted, like everyday things, like going to a grocery store or buying something or paying bills, are not that easy. They're really challenging when you're in a country, even if you speak language, and you can imagine how difficult it is if you don't speak the language. I always say stories, and when I reflect on them now, they might be funny, but but at that time, I really, every time I was almost in tears when those things happened to me. Just for example, going to a grocery store. Once I went to a store, bought a bag of peaches. Peaches were 99 cents per kilo, which I got few. At the register, I was charged over $7 for peaches. I did not speak English to explain that peaches were 99 cents per kilo, but cashier was impatient with me, just wanted money, and I did not have that much money. And I mean, I would not even, doesn't matter how much I like peaches, I would not pay that much for peaches at that time. And I was trying to explain, people in the line were impatient. Finally, manager came who spoke a little bit of German, and he took me to the produce department, and he said 99 cents per pound. And he said 2.2 pounds, it's equal kilogram. Okay, I understood that. The next thing was, I said, but this is 99 cents. He said, no, it's $1.99. You know what my mistake was? The line was one, and in Europe, one is written with a tail on side. So I thought I saw so many things around me that had just one, like just a line. I assumed that's just something that is there. I didn't know that is a number one for $1.99. Or so that's another example. Something else, tornadoes, for example. When we moved here, internet wasn't widespread. We couldn't do research like research that can be done now. For example, we came here had no ideas about tornadoes. When we learned about it, I was so worried. First of all, the sirens reminded me of war. The second, I was thinking, oh, we came here for a better and safer life, and now something will happen. No one could explain it to me that tornadoes do not happen in December. And then just other things, let's say health insurance. You start working at that time, we had choice. Do you want to have health insurance or not? And where we lived, insurance was mandatory for everyone. Paying bills, writing checks, transportation, using buses and so on, or going to a doctor using medicine that you don't know and it's hard to interpret in English what you have brought with you. Or I will just give you another example, smoke detector. We were resettled through resettlement agency, and our caseworker forgot to tell us about smoke detectors. And so I cooked, and just we heard that terrible sound that we did not know what was going on. And my husband took my daughter, our daughter, who was crying and who was afraid of that sound. We looked around, couldn't see anything. I ran to our neighbor and I just said, please help, help, help. And when someone comes at your door, you don't know who it is. And when a person says a help, you usually, I don't know, not many people would run and see. And he just looked at me and I said, please help, help, help. I pulled him. He came with us and then he showed us the smoke detector. He covered the smoke detector and showed us to open the window. Now, when I think about it, it's like, at that time it was really scary and just those basic everyday things that we take for granted as really challenging. And something else in addition to English, that new immigrants and refugees, many don't speak, you feel guilt. Coming here as a refugee, you feel guilt. You are safe, you have food, you have a roof over your head, but you have family members, you have friends who might not be safe or might not have enough food and so on. So those all things are going in your head, and then plus you need to adjust and learn about your new culture and country. My husband and we started working within maybe 2 months of our arrival. My husband started working at Farmland and I started working at Centurion. That company is closed now. I worked as an assembler. My husband hurt his hand at his job, and because of limited English, he didn't know what to do. He went back to work and he hurt his right hand. They told him that he can work with his left hand. So even though he wasn't able to do anything with right, they told him he can push things and do things with the left hand. At that point, we really started thinking, and why did we come here? We wanted a better life for our daughter, first of all, and ourselves. So we decided first, we took English classes. We decided to go back to school because for many immigrants and refugees, education is a top priority. I mean, safety and then top education, because education is something that no one can take away from us. They can take our houses, they can take our belongings, but education is what stays with us. So my husband and I, what we decided, we actually started our education here. We took our turns going back to school. I started here at SCC, then my husband, then I got bachelor's, then he did, and then I got master's so that I can teach, and that we both can work in careers that we want. We have 2 daughters now, and in between our younger daughter was born, and her first words, and she was able to form 2 words together, she would say, "Mama, study," because that was main thing in the morning when they were all asleep. I would study, and then she would, if she wakes up, she would look up and say, "Oh, Mama, study." That's what she has learned. all of that now, when I talk about it, it seems easy, but it wasn't easy, just doing all the things. And that's all same for all immigrants and refugees. It's just, in addition to everything else that I talked about, it's having the support. We were fortunate enough that we met someone, a young college UNL student who wanted to learn some German. And we spoke some German, or actually we spoke German. My German is getting worse by day since I'm not using it that much. And she would come and meet with us because her grandparents spoke German and she wanted to learn more. And she would teach us some English. And then in turn, we would talk to her in German. And that was really something that helped us learn even more about culture here. And also so that we can be more assimilate in the United States. We wanted, to do as much as possible in short amount of time. We also wanted to give back to this community. We wanted to become equal members of this community. And it is really hard if you're not accepted. And also if you don't have friends and people who when you talk to them, they let you also talk back. Often happened when my kids were small, we would go to playground, they would play, people would start talking to me, and then, and I don't know if that's, just saying it, I don't want to sound incorrect or blame anyone. That's probably what I want to say. But as soon as I would open my mouth, questions would stop because probably people were afraid, they might not understand me or they might ask me something incorrectly. But we continue doing what we were doing, going back to school, finding jobs that we like. And also we started, we became citizen because we said, if we vote, we can complain like everybody else. That's also something. And then also our voices can be heard. And if someone asks me how they can help refugees and immigrants, I would always say, don't feel sorry for us, empower us, help us become successful members of this community, help us learn English, let us go back to school, don't discriminate against us, and also be positive around us. And also I would tell to new refugees, always surround yourself with positive people, because that will help you reach your goals and have that sense of belonging. You will never forget about where you are from. That is important. That's part of us. But also we need to be part of this community. So thank you. Who's next? Audanvez, you're next.
All right. You hear me? All right. Yeah. So kind of my experience here is kind of different from Penella's experience. I came from Kenya 2003, and by the time I came to the US, I had already acquired my master's degree from Kenya. And fortunately for me also is I went in a US university based in Kenya. And so I kind of, when I was coming to the US, I was kind of prepared of what to expect here. The only differences in education is that probably here in the US, there's some courses or classes that were not necessary for me in Kenya, that when I joined this college or this university in Kenya, I was forced to take those classes like trigonometry, physics, biology. Those are things that I dropped when I was in high school first year. So then I go to university, I'm told, now you have to do this. And that was a huge, huge challenge for me. What I've learned being here in the US is kind of, one of the things that is important for here is time is important. In Kenya, probably time is not that important. We did have saying in the 1970s in Kenya that said there's no hurry in Africa, and probably that's underdeveloped Africa. But I have realized that time is important here. There's also a work culture here. People work a lot. So that is another thing that I've learned here. Also, climate has been a challenge for me. And I was told when I arrived here, oh, you know, it's for 10 years, you're going to, acclimate yourself with this climate here. The snow part of it is really, really challenging. The first time I ever saw snow was actually when I arrived here in the US. Also, with what Sanella said about the tornadoes, we don't have tornadoes in Africa. And the first week that I just arrived here in the US at K-State, there was a tornado siren. And I remember very well, I wanted to go out there and see the tornado myself. And the police officers were pushing me in. You cannot go and see that. So now I do know tornadoes are not a joke. Another thing that I've learned here in the US is that most Americans tend to have a problem with accent. In Kenya, we have 43 tribes, and 43 tribes represent 43 languages. I actually speak 7 languages of those 53, and I pick them up from, interacting with other people. We do not have a problem with accent in Africa. Actually, when I see somebody or hear somebody speak and break my language, that makes me very happy, especially if you're trying to learn my language. But here, I found out that some people, sometimes they are offended. The beliefs in the United States are kind of different from the beliefs that we have in Africa. That you see a groundhog, you don't have snow over there, you don't have the lakes like those, but the black cat is something that is kind of universal, means bad luck. Those are things that I'm familiar with. But also, what is amazing to me here, or what really challenged me, is the idea that in America, people have to give tips. So in Africa, we don't. Because once you give a tip, then you have an intention. And this was a big, huge challenge for me, tips. I asked myself several things that I've learned here, is that Americans will give tips. Americans also, or in America, you can get a refill of your drink. In Kenya, if you want soda, you have to pay for it. So that's another thing that I've learned here. I've also learned that Americans like college sports, football. If you go to a college football game in Kenya, you will find not more than even 100 people. People don't go for college football or college soccer. And also is the bathroom stalls. Some of the bathroom stalls that I've seen around is they have like spaces that somebody can see you or underneath there. I am not very sure whether the older people in my community will even go into those stalls. The one is all covered up. So those are some of the things that I've seen here. And also the taxes here. I remember I had a problem with challenge. I go to a store, I went to the mall, and I wanted to buy a shirt, and it was $16. So I wanted to pay $16, and then when I go to the checking out clerk, she says, hey, plus tax. I said, why? Why plus tax? It's only $16 here. So we had kind of a conversation about that. Then later on, I realized that, taxes here are separate from the price of a product. In Kenya, they are all like put all together. Americans also like having meals together, dinner tables, lunch hour. If you are in my community, you're going to be surprised. We don't care if you're not there. So people eat whenever they want to eat. And another challenge here is Americans go for lunch between 11 and 12. In Kenya, we go for lunch between 2 and 3. Sometimes our dinner time is at 10 o'clock. Sometimes I did read some articles where Americans said, oh, probably these Africans don't have food because they expect people to eat at 11, 12. We don't eat that time. So probably they're not eating because they don't have food. Now the time. Another thing that also challenged me here a little bit is the change of time, moving back and going front. So when I was a student, I remember I missed the class, not because I wanted to miss the class, it's because they had fixed time and I wasn't aware of that. So those are some of the things that I've learned here. Driving on the roads, I do see cars here drive with their headlamps on. In Kenya, you cannot drive during the day with your headlamps on. You'll be ticketed. The only cars that are allowed to do that are emergency cars. And those are some of the things that I've seen here in the US. Also, our grades when it comes to our educational system, we don't have, first of all, we don't have a study guide. So you don't expect a Kenyan teacher to give you a study guide. Number two, all our grades are published on the public, like on the hallways. We want to post them, the grades over here, so anybody can see. If I wanted to see, for example, right now, the students who start for the Kenyan exam last year, national exam, I can go to the internet right now and I can pull up any name and I can see the grades. They post them on internet. So those are some of the differences here. With the language, there's a challenge. Learning a new language, you have no choice, but you have to immerse yourself. You have to be with the people who speak the language. So that if you don't immerse yourself, then it's going to be a big, huge challenge to remember and even participate in that language. I did Japanese when I was in Kenya, and I was kind of fluent in that language. But I think right now, most of the Japanese that I learned is just gone. So up to that point, I think I want to stop here for now.
All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your stories. I don't know if any of you have any questions. You guys can type it on the chat, or you guys can ask directly to any of us, if there are any. Let's see. All right, I don't think there are any questions. Nope. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for oh wait, let me see, 1 second, there is one.
I do see a question, Mariano.
Yes.
Do the participants experience cultural shock when they go back to their origin country?
I do. I'm gonna answer this one. So every time I go to Mexico, they don't treat me like Mexican. They don't see me as one of them anymore. Even though I was born there until 13, they don't look at me like, oh, you're also one of us. And so I don't feel, welcome there sometimes by them. But then when I come back here, I don't feel part of one group. Like, they don't see me as an American. They see me as Hispanic or Mexican. So yes, sometimes it's like I'm not from here, but I'm also not from there. But where am I from? Sometimes it's hard for me to find my own identity, and it's sad that, going back to my home country, that they don't treat me like if I was one of them. Maybe because, obviously I grew up here and I have different perspective, different point of views, and but yeah, I don't know if any of you want to answer this question as well.
Yeah, I also experience the same thing. And when especially it comes to the work ethic, I think it brings a problem. I have several projects that are running in Kenya. And when I do ask those people who do some of those projects to do something, they kind of like say, hey, you understand how we do things here. Why are you pushing us so hard? And so we have that type of conflict. And they also don't think that I am part of their group now. They think about me as an outsider. And then when we are here in the US, as Mariano said, also we are looked at as immigrants. So there's this challenge of where exactly you stand. So yeah, we do face culture. I have faced some culture shock, especially with work.
If we also had another question, can each of you talk about the adjustments in food that you've had to make since coming here?
Jihan or something.
Yeah, I can take that. Food, first of all, I would say most of the things that like basic that we use, we could find at the grocery stores here. Some of the spices we were able to find at ethnic stores, and we do have one European ethnic store when we buy also things for our food, for Bosnian food. Fortunately now with Amazon, that's also great. You can order some spices too. Just to add, so I mean, it wasn't that difficult adjustment for us. However, I just want to share something which I, like how we take things from different cultures and like living with, I mean, just for me, I have Bosnian, living in Bosnia, then Germany, and then here. So we are trying, we incorporate all cultures together, and you take things that you think are best for you or your family. And something that I love about American culture is potlucks. So, I mean, when you go somewhere, usually there is one person, one family that cooks for everybody, and you work all day for it. Love it up here. When we came and people said it's potluck, everyone brings something. How can we? No, don't bring it. I'm cooking. No. So that's something great about American culture, and I adjusted to it. Although I love cooking, I adjust to it very easily.
Mhm. Well, for me, it's I've really not experienced any problem in getting what I want. I think most of the things that I eat, I also have, used to have those in Kenya. So not a big deal for me. I've not had any problems here in terms of food.
For me, I was 12 and 13 when I moved here. So one of for me at that time, the greatest foods ever was fast food, McDonald's, Burger King, all of that, because I have never ever in my whole entire life thought that I was gonna eat at those restaurants, because in Mexico we don't have one. The closest one is probably 3 hours away from us. So I always saw that on TV, but I remember trying it for the first time, and we ate fast food for a whole week, and I was the happiest kid on earth, because that food to me at that time, it was extremely delicious, and I just wanted to continue eating it. So to me, it was I was just happy that I was trying new foods from other places that I've never tried before.
I wondered what advice you'd like to share with new immigrants, new refugees coming to the US.
You say that again, Nicole?
What advice would you share with new immigrants and refugees coming to the US?
What I can say myself is going to a new place is you have to be calm, take time. Assimilation is not something that can happen overnight. I see one of the challenges that most of the new immigrants here are facing is the language, and they really feel sorry that will I ever really adjust and speak English? How long is this going to take me? And sometimes they just want to avoid interacting with Americans. All that I've always told them is just immerse yourself and talk to Americans. The only unfortunate part of it is that sometimes some of these immigrants feel shy because they cannot speak, and then they end up going to NCLEX. And I've also realized that some of the international students, they don't like participating in class, especially doing presentations. So what most of them are actually doing, which is not very good for them, is to take online classes. So in that way, then they don't come in direct contact with American students, which is not going to be very good, especially if they have to stay here for a long, long time. So yeah, so for immigrants and refugees, do not kill yourself that you don't understand most of these things. they'll come by as time goes by. You know, I've learned a lot. I keep on learning. And some of the things that I see around are a little bit challenging, but you know, take one day at a time and things will be all right.
I would also add, as I said earlier, I would add to Danvas, it's like surround yourself with people who will be wind in your back, as they say, who will encourage you to learn, encourage you to invest in yourself. Also try to be flexible and adaptable. Things don't, as Danvas said, don't happen overnight. Be patient with yourself. And then, but also take every opportunity to learn. Don't be afraid to speak up. Like, for example, even now, most of our panelists have accent, but also, you know, when you have an accent and when you're in a classroom full of students who don't have an accent, it's much harder to speak. So don't be afraid to speak and ask questions. In many other countries, teachers are really much more respected than here. And some students are afraid to ask questions. And here in America, it's more laid back. So encourage students that it is okay to ask questions, that we are here to help them. And also for any student, and I mean, what helped me is take every opportunity to learn the language. I mean, don't forget your first language, speak it at home, and you know, among your friends, but try to learn as much as possible. Listen to radio when you're driving. You know, I listened to talk radios. I hated what they were talking about. Sometimes it made me cry, but that was only radio shows that was available when I was driving. And at least I learned some new words, you know, listen, watch television, YouTube, go online, maybe listen, or, you know, or YouTube or other, or podcast, listen and learn something. Maybe give yourself a goal. Each week I will learn 1 or 2 new words. So those advice just from me.
Yeah, I agree. Just try to immerse yourself as much as possible in everything. Participate in daily life, in the community. Find the resources in the community that can, and perhaps us as Southeast Community College, we can advertise, make these resources available and better known somehow in some way, so that people can take advantage of them.
And one more thing, I would also say, do not forget about your culture and your language, because sometimes when we're learning or we are immersed to a new culture or language, we tend to just focus on that language that we want to learn. So yeah, just don't forget, you know, about your culture. Continue speaking your language and don't be afraid to speak it with others in public.
Thank you, everyone. Any other questions, folks? Okay. Thank you so much. What an excellent panel. I really appreciate you all sharing your experiences. This was great. Folks that are listening, please don't forget to complete that survey. And we will get this recording up and shared for next week so that you can share it with others, hopefully. And hopefully you can make it tomorrow. Thank you again. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.